Well, it's time to check in with our legal analyst, Joe DiGenova, who is, I guess, he's just putting away the tux. What do you wear to the Gridiron Dinner, Joe?
White tie and tails.
White tie and tails. So not even tux. I mean, this is white tie.
On the wrist.
Woo! Now, what do you do in these Gridiron meetings? You know, I've never been in one, and they're closed to the press, so I assume that, you know, there's all kinds of strange, you know, rituals that go on there. What happens?
The President of the United States shows up once in a while to be roasted by the mainstream media, and it's usually a pretty good show. The Marine Band is the orchestra, the pit orchestra, and a number of us perform musical numbers for the President.
Did you perform?
Masses.
Did you perform?
I did indeed.
And what did you do?
I did a song.
Are you allowed to say it, or there's a top
I actually
secret?
played Eric Cantor in a skit about the ongoing dispute between Speaker Boehner and the Majority Leader, Mr. Cantor. It was quite fascinating fun, actually.
All right, well, good.
You know, Joe, I have a theater background. If you guys need some assistance going forward,
you know, there's always a spot there for people with talent.
Thank you, I appreciate it.
Well, and that's why Joe got invited. Okay, can I ask you another question? Let's get down to what really matters, my speeding tickets. There is a story out of Baltimore County. We talked about this last week, where a guy he's a lawyer, and he challenged his ticket, and he said, look, I make the case that because of the bounty system, where the people who actually make the speed cameras get a cut of the tickets that are issued, it's against Maryland law, and a judge has agreed with him, and they say that although this is just one single ticket, but that, you know, it is a persuasive argument that could be taken to other jurisdictions, and it may be that the speed cameras in Maryland violate Maryland law if you use this bounty system to pay for the speed cameras.
That is correct. Actually, Xerox operates the cameras in Baltimore County where this occurred. They get $19 out of every $40 ticket.
Wow.
It's pretty remarkable. The judge in this case, a Baltimore County Circuit Judge, Susan Souter, ruled that the enforcement mechanism where Xerox runs the cameras is illegal because the contract between the county and Xerox says that Xerox will operate the cameras. That's in direct violation of Maryland law, which says that the county must operate the cameras. The county argued, oh, well, this is just a technicality. We actually, the Baltimore County Police actually run the cameras. And the judge says, no, they don't, and threw out this guy's ticket. This is clearly going to go to the highest court in the state of Maryland, and they're going to decide whether or not operate really means operate, or it's just a figment of the writer's imagination.
Well, Joe, just mentioning, this just, you know, maybe we want to take this up in Montgomery County, where we both live, and I happen to have the perfect test vehicle in that I just received a speeding camera ticket for going 42 and a 35.
Go for it.
Well, I didn't know. No, I need your help.
Find out what the county contract.
No,
Joe, he's soliciting.
You're seeking free legal counsel.
Exactly.
Well, let's talk after the show. But here's what's really interesting.
Suddenly, this interview is privileged and confidential.
Yeah, that's right. It's not privileged when there are millions of people listening to WMAL.
Yeah.
Here's what's really fascinating, and this could only happen in a state where you have a one-party system. The chairman of the House Transportation Committee in the Maryland House of Delegates, a Democrat by the name of James Malone. Do you know what he said after he heard about this ruling?
What?
He said, I'm going to call up and talk to the judge in the case, Susan Souter. Well, let me tell you something. If he does that, which, of course, knowing how stupid they are in the House of Delegates, he probably will unless the Legislative Council tells him not to, he will be in a heap of trouble. You just don't talk to judges about their rulings. You read them, and then you go to another court. This guy is typical of the idiocy that abounds in Annapolis.
Typical idiocy brings us to our next topic. Mary Che, she's D.C. Council member. She now is proposing that any handgun owner in the district has to have $250,000 of liability coverage, insurance, basically. Right. And, of course, we have learned from Chief Justice Roberts in the Obamacare decision that when the government forces you to buy insurance, that's basically a tax. Please explain to me how they can tax liberty, how they can tax the right to own a weapon. This
is a very, very interesting question. This is clearly because of the history of gun control and anti-gun initiatives by the city council, even after the Heller case, which established the right to bear arms finally of private citizens in their homes. This is an attempt to make it difficult to buy a gun. That's all this is. This is a pretextual insurance policy to make it more difficult, more expensive, onerous, burdensome to own a weapon. I think the district, if it passes this legislation, is going to have serious trouble making it stand up in court, because there has never been an effort to do this prior to the Heller ruling. There's never been any desire to have anybody own insurance for guns, and now all of a sudden, after the right to bear arms is clearly established by the Supreme Court, the D.C. Council decides that people who legally own guns need insurance for it. I think this is going to be struck down as pretextual, unconstitutional burden. Remember, the Second Amendment says you shall have the right to keep and bear arms. It doesn't say anything about insurance. And by the way, it's a positive right. It doesn't say the government shall not, like the other parts of the Bill of Rights. This says you, the citizens, shall have the right to keep and bear arms. I think this is a no-brainer. This is going to get struck down.
Bin Laden's son-in-law is coming back to this country for trial.
Yes.
How do you feel about that?
He's here. Actually,
in New York City, which is where they tried to try Khalid Sheikh Mohammed, and that was a disaster.
Well, this was the stealth rendition of Bin Laden's son-in-law, Abu Ghaith, to New York. Remember, we only found out about it after it happened. This is the pathetic, try them in the civil courts at any cost, no matter what, because we don't like George Bush policy, except that the president has not shut Guantanamo. Abu Ghaith should have been sent to Guantanamo for intensive interrogation over a number of years. They said, well, we got 22 pages from him. We interrogated him, and then we turned him over to the civil authorities. They have no idea how much information over a period of time he could have given them. This is the triumph of a silly, self-indulgent policy about trying these cases. This is the criminal justice model which preceded September 11th and which failed miserably in preventing the attack of September the 11th. The president just doesn't want to honor the fact that George Bush's policies after 9/11 worked very, very well, and that our enhanced interrogation techniques and everything associated with keeping people at Guantanamo has worked very well since then. And that's the reason he hasn't closed it. He hasn't closed Guantanamo because he can't close Guantanamo, because they have no place to send the people that are there.
Joe DiGenova, always good to have you. Thanks for